They came from the dark between stars, cold and calculating. No warning, no declaration, just annihilation. The Varexi did not believe in diplomacy. To them, conversation was wasted breath. Evolution had taught them only one truth: dominate or die. Their fleets carved paths through star systems like razors through silk, leaving only husks of civilization behind. Worlds burned, archives lost, species erased without hesitation. It was not cruelty, it was efficiency. Humanity was not even their first choice. We were a footnote in their conquest schedule, a secondary target after the collapse of the Zython and the eradication of the Raloi. What little data they had on humans came from old listening posts and decrypted trade transmissions. Our technology was laughably outdated, our military fragmented, our leadership volatile, emotionally reactive, inefficiently democratic. In the Varexi consensus, we were the ideal prey. Soft, chaotic, unworthy of assimilation. Reports from fringe sectors confirmed the ease of early engagements. Outposts on Terra Linea and Europa's reach vanished within hours. Civilian distress signals were dismissed by Predator Command as noise, panicked creatures squealing into the void. They did not understand the broadcasts. They didn't need to. All that mattered was silence followed the message. One Predator commander described the first human garrison they encountered as a glass house armed with sticks. The comment was logged with satisfaction. Another subjugated race. Another planetary acquisition. They would be useful as labor if any were left alive. Perseus 9 was marked next. It was an industrial colony located near a stable wormhole, lightly defended and mostly automated. Surveillance drones recorded modest energy output, basic point defense cannons, and a laughably outdated orbital array. A clean kill, the kind that ensured advancement through Varexi ranks. Fast, bloodless, surgical. The fleet arrived in formation. 3 command vessels, 16 destroyers, and 51 auxiliary craft. They moved in silence, broadcasting no warnings. There was no need for subterfuge. Their superiority was the only declaration required. Initial scans found the colony intact, its systems online, its defensive network in passive mode. The orbital platforms hadn't even powered up to challenge their approach. It was insultingly easy. Landing parties were dispatched. Troop pods dropped through the upper atmosphere and landed with precision near key infrastructure points: the fusion core, the comms hub, and the central AI nexus. Varexi's squads fanned out, executing protocols with mechanical perfection. They encountered no resistance. Something was wrong. Buildings were functional, but empty. Machinery ran, but no personnel were in sight. The AI nexus was active, but did not respond. A layer of dust-coated consoles. Food sat rotting on tables. Doors were ajar. Personal belongings left behind. It wasn't evacuation. It was abandonment. A destroyer captain flagged the anomaly. Predator Command dismissed it. Continue the sweep. Secure the facility. Log the conquest. Then the static began. Short-range comms started glitching. Helma HUDs flickered. Navigation pings returned warped echoes, as if the terrain was shifting. Those satellites confirmed nothing had changed. Squad after squad fell out of contact. No distress calls. Just silence. A recon drone inside the comms hub transmitted its final feed. Rows of helmets lined up on the floor. Varexi helmets, each with a single vertical cut through the visor. The image froze. Then the drone detonated. In orbit, 2 auxiliary craft vanished from sensors. No weapons discharge, no debris field. Just gone. The commanding vessel initiated a high-orbit scan. That's when they noticed it. Signal interference mapped in a rotating hexagonal pattern, slowly tightening around the fleet's position. It wasn't noise. It was an algorithm. A cage. Still, they hesitated. They always hesitated when prey didn't run. It was a behavior their logic structures didn't account for. When you evolve as a predator, you never expect prey to stand still and stare back. The Varexi had never fought humans before. Not really. They'd seen our border colonies and our emergency signals. They mistook panic for weakness. But they'd never faced what happened when humans stopped running. They didn't realize we'd been watching them long before they noticed us. That the chaos in our systems was the byproduct of redundancy, not failure. That emotion did not impair judgment, it fueled it. They thought humanity fractured easily. They didn't understand that fear, for us, was not paralysis. It was ignition. The commander of the Varexi fleet issued a partial retreat. Standard protocol for unpredictable resistance. Hold back, analyze, strike again with adjusted vectors. They never got the chance. By the time the order relayed, their quantum bridge relays were fried. Not destroyed, just looped, signal jammed by pulses disguised as Varexi AI updates. Their ships were isolated. One by one, system integrity collapsed. Their targeting arrays shut down. Engines stalled. Gravity control systems rebooted into lockdown. The last image captured by their flagship's black box was a swarm of dark shapes detaching from the orbital shadows. Human gunships using Predator shielding tech. They moved without signatures, without comms, without warning. The first strike was not meant to win. It was meant to be seen. Human command understood that survival did not lie in brute force. Against a species bred for war, whose very biology favored aggression and ruthlessness, traditional resistance was suicide. So they chose a different path: calculated retreat, manufactured failure, and strategic surrender. Every loss served a purpose. Every abandoned outpost, a breadcrumb. Every recorded defeat, a story told exactly as the Varexi needed to hear it. In the shadows of the Perseus 9 aftermath, humanity activated Protocol Veil. Civilian systems were darkened. Supply routes were rerouted through deep space corridors. Official comms went silent. To the Varexi, it appeared as chaos. To those who knew, it was precision. The Varexi advanced deeper. Flush from victory, they pushed into human-controlled space, expecting scattered resistance and broken morale. Instead, they found dead worlds and decoys. A dozen colonies turned out to be holographic projections layered over mind husks. Automated facilities lured in ground troops before collapsing entire structures under them. One fleet was obliterated when a gas giant's orbital refinery exploded with untraceable trigger codes. Human military intelligence knew the Varexi doctrine: press, dominate, consume. They had no concept of retreat as a tactic. They didn't understand psychological warfare because they had never needed it. But humans understood how to weaponize perception. We knew how to make fear spread like a virus. Quiet, invisible, irreversible. The humans never struck the same way twice. One operation lured a Predator vessel into a field of derelict mining drones. The drones activated in sync, magnetizing to its hull and overloading its reactor in under 20 seconds. Another used ancient comm towers to bounce false fleet signatures across 3 systems, leading an entire Varexi battle group on a chase through empty space, until their fuel ran dry and their own distress calls went unanswered. And still, the humans remained invisible. Project Anvil coordinated it all. A decentralized intelligence and operations network powered by hybrid AI constructs and human wargamers working in tandem. Its protocols could simulate Varexi response patterns within a 92% confidence rate. Every move the Varexi made had already been mapped. Not guessed, anticipated. Humanity was not reacting. Humanity was orchestrating. Data from captured Predator tech fed into human systems in real time. Energy weapons adapted. Targeting arrays recalibrated. Armor reconfigured. Varexi encryption was cracked, then mimicked. Humans began to insert false reports into enemy command chains. One Predator fleet destroyed another after a forged communique marked it as a human-aligned defect. Varexi officers started questioning each other's loyalty. Doubt took root. It was not grand victories that broke them. It was the sense that they no longer controlled the battlefield. One minute they were hunters, the next uncertain. The space between those moments was where humanity thrived. Ships disappeared without combat. Patrols vanished in systems with no enemy presence. AI units developed erratic behaviors, rerouting supply chains, canceling orders mid-operation. Some Varexi commanders believed their own technology was infected. Others suspected internal sabotage. None of them realized it was simply human interference disguised as error. At no point did humanity strike with overwhelming force. Every operation was surgical. No wasted resources, no exposed assets. The Varexi never saw human faces, never captured prisoners, never intercepted live comms. Even the dead told no tales. When they found bodies, if any remained, they bore no identifiable marks, just precise incisions, clean kills. Surgical, clinical, unnatural. Panic began to surface within the Varexi fleet command. Reports grew fragmented. Fleets failed to check in. Strike teams went dark. Entire systems became no-fly zones not because they were lost, but because they might be compromised. The predator mind, designed to dominate, had no answer for an enemy that refused to stand and fight. And then came the turning point. In Sector D-34, a high-value predator cruiser pursued what appeared to be a damaged human freighter into a nebula cluster. Standard protocol. No threat, no resistance. Easy acquisition. The cruiser never emerged. Instead, the freighter transmitted a single message on a predator frequency. We see you now. 17 hours later, 3 more predator vessels entered the same nebula on a recovery mission. None returned. It was not the scale of the losses that mattered. It was the implication. For the first time, the Varexi stopped advancing. Their front lines held position. Commanders ordered redundancies. Fleets were called back to reinforce what they once considered secure. The momentum was gone, and with it, their confidence. Humanity had drawn them in, layer by layer, deeper and deeper into an artificial theater of war. A war not designed to be won in traditional terms, but to be controlled entirely from behind the curtain. While the Varexi obsessed over their next strike, humanity had already chosen the battlefield, weaponized the rules, and rewritten the outcome. The Varexi still believed humans were weak, but for the first time, they feared we might be something worse. Unknowable, unpredictable, unyielding. They had no word for resilience. In the Varexi language, survival was synonymous with dominance. Strength alone ensured existence. Anything else was collateral. They couldn't grasp what humans became when broken. They thought fear fractured resolve. They didn't know it forged it. After the first phase of the war shifted, predator fleets found themselves stranded between territories they once controlled and systems now dark and silent. What little data they recovered from damaged black boxes revealed a disturbing pattern: adaptation. Human technology advanced in months, what should have taken decades. Communication protocols, once primitive, were now encrypted beyond their scanners. Human strike teams began appearing behind enemy lines, where no known transport routes existed. They weren't just hitting back. They were evolving faster than the Varexi could process. Captured debris from downed predator ships told part of the story. Human engineers had reverse-engineered power relays and weapon mounts, integrating alien energy systems with modular architecture. Armor plating, once vulnerable, now reflected focused plasma bursts. Atmospheric shuttles were now jump-capable. Human AI, once crude, had absorbed and overwritten entire segments of Varexi network logic. What alarmed Predator Command wasn't technological parity, it was tactical improvisation. Human soldiers executed attacks the Varexi considered irrational. Low-odds insertions, joint operations with partial data, calculated risks that no Predator would accept. Yet they succeeded. Human squads infiltrated fully fortified ships using unshielded boarding pods, crawling through exposed hull breaches with nothing but vacuum suits and maglock boots. In one instance, a single 4-man human unit disabled a command carrier's fusion core using scavenged Varexi equipment and remote detonated scrap tech. The event was labeled statistically impossible. They underestimated humanity's most dangerous trait: adaptability driven by desperation. Humans didn't need tradition or command consensus. They needed a chance, no matter how small. Where Varexi doctrine emphasized order and control, humans operated in chaos by choice. They weren't a mirror of predator strategy. They were an anomaly. Resistance across captured systems surged. The Varexi called them uprisings. They weren't. These weren't scattered civilians with improvised weapons. They were coordinated cells, trained, supplied, and synchronized. Human operatives who had vanished months earlier were now embedded across Predator territory. They didn't just attack. They sabotaged infrastructure, rerouted logistics, and fed false data into Varexi strategic networks. Humanity's push wasn't centralized. That's what made it work. There was no single fleet, no one battle group to target. The Silent Armada, as it came to be known, was a distributed swarm. Each unit acted independently, but all shared data in real time through an encrypted mesh web that mimicked Varexi frequency patterns. Their movements couldn't be tracked because they didn't follow linear logic. Even the psychological warfare intensified. Predator officers began receiving messages in their own language. Not threats, not ultimatums. Warnings. You are being studied. We learn from every wound. Each of us is the sum of your mistakes. Then came the reclamations. Systems thought irreversibly lost reactivated one by one. Bastion 5 came back online under human control in under 10 hours. The orbital refinery at New Keldron, once considered the Varexi strategic fuel point, detonated in a cascading chain reaction after human infiltrators reprogrammed its gravity regulators. These weren't symbolic victories. They were calculated disruptions of supply chains, power projection, and morale. The Varexi war doctrine began to collapse from within. As command structures became paranoid and communication failures increased, coordination between fleets suffered. A battle over Sector Epsilon spiraled into chaos when 2 Predator ships mistook each other for human stealth cruisers and fired first. Human operatives intercepted the footage and transmitted it across Predator channels. By the time reinforcements arrived, the fight was already lost. Humanity did not issue demands. There were no broadcasts of victory or threats of retribution. What followed was worse: silence. The kind that left Varexi captains wondering if they were next or if they were already being watched. Each loss planted doubt. Each failed retaliation created hesitation. In response, the Predator High Command initiated a recall of outer fleets. They deemed human territory too unstable to occupy, too costly to hold. They consolidated, forming defensive perimeters, believing the threat would die down once humans ran out of resources. They still didn't understand. Humans weren't reacting. They were waiting, testing, probing every inch of the Varexi's rigid structure for weak points. Every failed Predator strike wasn't a setback for humanity. It was data. Every loss was fuel. In a war of attrition, the Varexi relied on immediate dominance. But humanity? Humanity thrived when the night dragged on, when victory required endurance, pain, and persistence. They thought they were superior because they'd won battles. Humans had already moved on to winning the war. They didn't see the end coming because they never imagined there could be one. For the Varexi, extinction was always something that happened to others. They were the apex. Every civilization before had crumbled beneath their relentless logic, their unified structure, their merciless doctrine. But for the first time in their history, they faced something they couldn't dissect, couldn't predict, and couldn't dominate. Humanity didn't win with larger fleets or better weapons. They didn't need to. They won by becoming the kind of enemy the Varexi had never planned for, unquantifiable. A threat that didn't seek power or territory. A force that didn't follow rules. Every Varexi model for victory broke down not because humans defied the outcome, but because they rewrote the inputs. One by one, Varexi forward bases went dark. Not from bombardment or assault, but from abandonment. Crews mutinied. Logistics collapsed. AI systems began flagging entire sectors as compromised, unreachable, unserviceable. Dozens of ships initiated self-destruct when human code infiltrated their navigation cores, erasing any chance of data recovery. Whole divisions simply vanished into regions that had once been considered secure. When the Varexi pulled back, they expected regrouping to bring clarity. Instead, the pullback accelerated the chaos. Human fleets, now fluent in Varexi protocol, slipped through border systems undetected. Supply hubs exploded in synchronized sequences. Intelligence nodes, once the backbone of the Varexi machine, broadcast conflicting orders, pitting commander against commander. For a species that thrived on hierarchy, dissonance was fatal. It wasn't brute force that broke them. It was pressure applied at the exact fault lines they never knew they had. Psychological fatigue, strategic overload, internal distrust. The Varexi were engineered for direct confrontation, but humans had never played that game. They fought with ambiguity, fed on misdirection, and struck only when certainty became overconfidence. Entire sectors were seeded without a shot fired. In those places, humans didn't move in. They left them empty, as if to say, "We don't need what you took. We just needed you to know we could take it back whenever we wanted." And they believed it. Among the upper echelons of Predator Command, a new word began circulating. Not in official reports, but in whispers. Aberrant, the label for humanity. Not prey, not enemy. Aberrant, a variable that defied outcome, logic, and probability. It was not a name born from understanding, it was born from fear. Efforts to negotiate failed before they began. When Predator envoys attempted first contact under white flag protocols, the ships were found adrift days later. Not destroyed, simply emptied. No bodies, no black box records. Just a phrase carved into the inner hull in dozens of languages, including their own. You had your chance. The final blow didn't come with a declaration. It came as a cascade. Human strike teams, once scattered across hundreds of covert missions, activated in unison. Infrastructure collapse followed in real time. Power grids, relay chains, fusion harvesters, orbital foundries. The Predator war engine, once self-sustaining, fell silent in less than 3 standard cycles. Retreat became the only strategy, but it wasn't organized. It was panic. Fleets collided as they fled through the same jump corridors. Varexi colonies turned against each other, hoarding resources, locking out evacuees. Central Command issued lockdown orders, which were ignored or countermanded within hours. Human transmissions flooded every channel. Not threats, not warnings, just recordings. Of Varexi defeats, of their war crimes, of their own captains begging for extraction before the darkness swallowed them whole. When the last functioning Predator Council met, their final act was not to plan resistance. It was to decide whether their species should scatter and hide, or cease hostilities entirely and quarantine themselves from the galaxy. Neither choice held dignity. Both tasted like ash. What remained of the Predator military fractured into nomadic remnants. Rogue commanders, deserters, exiles. They hid in dead systems, powered down, hoping silence would protect them. Some tried to integrate into fringe colonies, wearing stolen identities. But even there, the stories found them. Tales of human ghost fleets, of stations blinking out without warning, of ships boarding in absolute silence and leaving nothing behind but the words, "Never again." Humanity didn't chase them. That wasn't necessary. They had made their point. The war wasn't about territory. It was about teaching. A lesson the Varexi would never forget, because forgetting would mean extinction. And still, no official records were released by Earth Command. No press briefings. No claims of victory. Humanity vanished back into its systems, rebuilding in quiet, sending no signals, offering no statements. The galaxy was left to guess. Were humans finished? Watching? Preparing? No one knew. What was certain, however, was that the age of the Predator was over. Not because they had been destroyed, but because they had been shown the limits of their evolution. Shown that dominance is not power. That fear is not control. That humanity, flawed, scattered, chaotic, had become something they could neither understand nor defeat.